Hello, welcome to the stream. Greg rules. Welcome back. It's so nice to see you again in the streams here. I hope college is going well for you. Let's see. Hello. I miss seeing your name. It always reminds me of no, I'm not gonna remember the name. Just the Greg. I don't know. There's every time I see the name, Night in the Woods. That's it. Greg is my favorite character. I haven't played the game. I've seen people play it, but Greg is like, he always makes me laugh, especially like when his arms go up in the air and he's all wiggly. He's so much fun. So welcome everyone. Argonath, Sin, hello. Goodrim, hello. Welcome to the streams. So for today's stream, we'll be doing something a little bit different. Now, I was hoping to do a bigger demo on this, but unfortunately I didn't have time to prep for the big demo. So I'm going to do an introduction on something that I've had a lot of people request before, and it's a little bit of a tough topic because it's very deep, and I'm going to try to cover it like simply to begin with here. And this is going to be cloth simulation for animation. Now, I did a demo on that a while back of a character picking up a piece of cloth and then just throwing it, so interacting with cloth. And that's tough to do, but it's not too bad because it's only for a little bit of cloth simulation. But what if you have to have a character in a dress? How do you simulate that? How do you simulate clothing on a character? That's tough. And it's simply tough because when you deal with simulation, you're dealing with Maya's physics and hoping that something doesn't explode on you and have to try and fix that. So that alone makes things very tricky. With that said, we can use it simply, but there are some things that we have to pay attention to when we are working with cloth. And Sarah, hello! Welcome to the streams. So, and college is great so far. Since I'm in media, we are covering documentary filmmaking. Awesome! Screenwriting and critical thinking. That's fantastic. I've always wanted to take like a proper filmmaking course. Most of the filmmaking stuff that I've learned, I've learned a lot through books and stuff, but never through like a proper course. And that's always something that's fascinated me. I love just cinematography in general. Not so much that I would be a filmmaker, but just studying it is so much fun. So I hope you're enjoying that and having fun with that. Sounds really cool, especially critical thinking. That's always a good skill to have. So yeah, today is going to be all about cloth sim. So definitely feel free to ask questions in this. Like I said, I had planned for a bigger demo. We're going to be keeping it a little bit smaller in scope, but then over the next few weeks, what I'm hoping to do is to animate a scene and then show how I would simulate clothes for that scene. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, before we dive into that, I did want to give some updates on the stream and a few of the other projects that I'm working on, which we had mentioned in previous streams. Let's see. I wish the school found a lecturer for the cinematography unit. I was so stoked to find out we had it. Awesome! Cinematography is a really cool thing to do. Okay, my mind's all over the place today. So the first update that I wanted to give is just in terms of the streams themselves. There might be more coming soon. They're still in the planning phase, but my brother finally got a schedule change that might allow him to do a little bit more. So we're working on that right now, but I just wanted to give a heads up for you guys, just as a little hint, a sparkling. Yes, more streams and a little bit of more variety. Lies. Yeah, there's no brother. It's just me in a mirror. I talk to myself a lot. But we're hoping to get those rolling after CTN probably. Because for anyone who doesn't know, CTN, the Creative Talent Network, is in 2 weeks now, less than 2 weeks. So during that time, we won't have streams because Cameron and I will be in California at the time, attending the convention. I will see if I can record some videos and upload them instead of the streams, just short videos, maybe of the convention or like thoughts on what I saw that day, something like that. We'll see. I'm only gonna have a laptop, so I'm gonna be limited on my editing abilities. So that was the first little announcement there. The second thing is I wanted to update people on the umbrella rig that I'm working on. So this is something we had talked about in previous streams, and it was requested from one of the students at AM that wanted an umbrella rig. And I've actually got the rig pretty much complete at this point. I just need to add the cloth over top of it, which is... I keep going back and forth on which way I want to do it. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like the soundtrack. I can definitely share the link to it. It's a playlist that I found on YouTube. There's the link for you guys. I love listening to Zelda soundtracks or Mario soundtracks. Any video game soundtrack, really, when I work. It's so much fun. So this is the umbrella rig that I'm working on. I've got the main mechanism working, so I don't have the actual handle made yet. That's something I'm going to be working on in just a little bit. But as you can see, we can move this around. It's working. If I select all of my controls up here, I can open and close it just fine. I also have individual controls for the outside, the middle, and inside, so like that, and then independent controls for each individual piece here. So if I wanted to make it look all broken and disheveled, I can do that. So I've got the rig done. At this point, it's just adding the cloth over top and making sure that works without breaking, which is the trickier part, oddly enough. So hopefully I'll have this released for AM students soon. I just wanted to show that and show that it is still being worked on. And thoughts on the Smash Bros info released? Released today. Is that the Piranha Plant info? If so, I'm super excited for it. When I first saw the Piranha Plant, is like, that seems like an odd character choice, but after seeing the video of him, he's so adorable. I want to play as the Piranha Plant now. He's just so cute. And I'm glad that they went with a Piranha Plant and not Petey Piranha, just because it's so different. Petey Piranha would have been kind of the obvious choice in terms of a character, but the fact that they have the Piranha Plant in a pipe with tiny little feet, it's just adorable. And then the I didn't really pay too much attention to the stickers, or what is it called? It's not stamps. Is it stickers? I forget the term they used. I didn't pay attention too much on that. It seemed kind of cool. I'm just glad that they're bringing a story mode of sorts back in. My brother and I loved the story mode in Brawl. I know a lot of people didn't like emissary mode, but we really had fun because we played co-op on that all the time. And anytime there's a co-op game, we're in it. So the fact that they've got a similar type of mode again, I'm super excited for it. Just in general, I'm super excited. I actually pre-ordered my copy yesterday. Yay! So I'm super excited when that comes out. I'm going to have to spend some time during the holidays just playing that game. And if you guys have any thoughts on the characters or anything, definitely let me know. And I'd love to hear like everyone's favorite characters when they play. For Cameron and I, oddly enough, it's Mario and Luigi. Who would have guessed? Those are the characters we play with the most. But we just like the twins, apparently. So let's see. Then your small question regarding the umbrella rig. How will the cloth be able to simulate the closing and opening? That's the thing I'm having trouble with, is I want to find a way that works well. Now, I could simulate cloth on top, which is basically put a piece of geometry, simulate it as cloth, and then have it simulate with the whole thing. But that can run really slow. So the other thing that I'm trying to figure out is a good way of rigging it so that it's basically a skin over top, skin in the sense of the rigging type skin, and just bound to the joints of the rig and fold up properly. And it works well for the ends here. It's just the middle because it collapses inwards. So if I select this, you can see how these parts here collapse inwards. That's the point that's kind of giving a little bit of trouble. I just have to do a lot more fine-tuning with the skin weights and stuff. But I will get there. And I'm thinking maybe I'll have two versions. One with an actual cloth simulation, the other with a skin. And then once that's done, I'd like to show the process of how I did it quickly. Yeah, skin weighting. I did a little bit of it just for this as a test, and already I was just like, oh, skin weights, why? It's such a pain to do for each joint. Ugh. For me, no matter what, it will be Simon Belmont. Oh, Simon Belmont. I just finished the Castlevania cartoon series with Trevor Belmont. Now I'm so excited to play with Simon and is it Richter? Yeah, Richter in the Smash Brothers. Like, just it got me all hyped for that. I've never played a Castlevania game except for Castlevania 64, which I rented as a kid. I got the best experience with Castlevania, apparently. But I always loved the series. The music, oh, so good. Yeah, I'm really excited for those characters too. Yeah, Argonath, here's the umbrella rig. I'm close to being done. The big thing I need to do is skin the umbrella, or the actual cloth over top of it. And just model a handle. I'm thinking I'm going to model a few different handles. So like a typical curved one, a straight one, just so people can easily switch them in and out. But it is all rigged. So at this point, I can open and close it just like that. I can control each individual selection here, or I can control down to the individual pieces if I wanted to. So like that. So it's all in there. At this point, it's just getting the cloth, which is oddly enough proving to be one of the trickier things, but I'm hoping to get it done soon. I know it's been a while already, but hopefully I'll get that to you soon. And then rumors about him doing a Zelda TV series. Yes, I heard those rumors. I'm excited for that. I don't know if it's rumors or if it was confirmed that he was actually in talks for a Zelda TV series, the director or creator of the Castlevania series, but I'm super excited for it if it is the case. Let's see. Since you can move the limbs individually, will there be a control to reset all the limbs? Yeah, if you want to reset all the limbs, really all you need to do... Now I was translating them, but you'll rotate them here. I'm still working on getting the controls to be a little bit more intuitive. But if I was to reset or like just break this all up like that, maybe have it crawl along the ground, all I'd need to do is select it and then zero out the rotations, and that'll bring everything back to its default. Same thing with these controls here. If I reset my translates, that just closes the umbrella. So now I can reopen it, and I've set it up so that when you use each control, like all the three controls together, it actually opens up the way an umbrella would. So you don't have to try and figure out, well, the middle has to open up at a certain speed, and then the next one has to open up at a certain speed, and this one has to open up, like all of that. It'll just do that automatically for you if you want to keep things simple. So, hopefully it's going to work well for you, Toby, once I get it to you. And like I said, for anyone in Animation Mentor, I want to release this for everyone, so everyone will be able to use it. Need that Houdini in your life for the cloth? Yes. Houdini cloth, I've seen videos of it. I've never used Houdini, but oh, it looks so nice. Let's see. The other thing that I was working on is... and this is going to be a demo for another time, but I've been playing around with Marvelous Designer, which is a clothing simulation tool to create clothes, because I do want to make some new clothes for the AM rigs. Specifically, I want to make clothes for a lot of the rigs that don't have them right now, as well as just making a variety of things. People have asked me for that for a while, and I want to make something that's a little bit more varied. So things like dresses and things that are a little bit more flowy. So this is a program that I do want to demo at some point, once I'm just a little bit more used to it. But I've been playing around with it, and I just wanted to show this as a kind of let's see. Do I have the project saved here? Oh, I don't think I saved the project. I just wanted to show this just for anyone who's curious about this program. So let me find out where I saved my stuff. And nope, that's the Garmin file. Let's see, project. Is it this one? Let's hope it's saved properly for me. There we go. So here is a dress that I'd just played around with creating for Aya here. Now, the nice thing with this program is when you're designing the clothes, it's actually designed like an actual cloth. So for example, you can see here, this is the actual clothing of Aya here. It's all patches and, well, like you would do at a like if you were a seamstress or like actually sewing clothes together, which is really cool. What it also does is it gives very realistic feel to the clothes because it's falling naturally. So for example, I could simulate this, and there we go. We've got very quick cloth simulation. Now this is cloth simulation in this program, not in Maya, so you're not going to be able to animate with this. But I want to be able to create clothing that kind of works with these characters a little bit more. And that way you guys can then use what I'm going to cover today and in the next little bit, cloth simulation, to add more variety to a shot and not just be stuck to skin tight clothing. So yeah, we've got all of this, and I really love this program because if you do want to add some stuff, let's see, you can import animes into the new version. Yeah, you can. So if I wanted to, I could go into the library, and they have, motion right here, and they've got a bunch of like animation files from in there, so you can actually import animation into here and then simulate the clothes. So I guess that would be an interesting demo to do, and then export the clothing from here. That would be an interesting thing to try out. But yeah, this program is really cool. And then just to kind of show off how quick it is, I can go into the wind controller here and just turn that on, and look, we've got the dress blowing in the wind. So there we go. So very nice, it's an awesome program. If you guys want to play around with this, this also has a free 30-day trial, so feel free to download it, give it a try. It's a lot of fun. The big thing is you do have to learn a little bit about shaping clothes. So for example, like these two things are the sleeves right here. They're not just simple tubes. You actually have to have a pattern. The shirt, for example, isn't just square. Let's see, by any chance is this program very demanding on your computer? On my computer, not too much. Let's see, I'm simulating right now, and it's using let's see, my CPU's just jumped here because of that. It's using 50% of my CPU. My actual streaming is what's taking a good chunk of my CPU right now, so it's not too bad. And it works really, really well. So even with a lower end machine, you could get some really good results with this. And then I've been seriously considering this for game development. I know big games use it exclusively, obviously with ZBrush and Substance. Yeah, so you would take this clothing here, then just export it into ZBrush, and then you can sculpt with it, which is another thing that I want to do. And you kind of have to do it because when you just take these clothes straight from Marvelous here into Maya, the topology isn't very good. It's not made for animation, it's made for simulation. Which in Maya, it's not going to wrap well. So it's the little things that I need to try and figure out the best workflow for this. But you can even like just come down all the way to the stitching here and actually add stitching to things. It's so cool. And then by any chances, instead of simulating in Maya, you say? Yeah, so instead of simulating in Maya, we can use this. I'm more used to simulating in Maya, so that's what I might like where I lean towards. But I do want to try this someday. Exporting an animation from Maya, bringing it in here, and then simulating the cloth through here, which would be pretty cool. But what I love about this program is, let's say that dress is too long. I want to make it a little shorter. Well, I can just take these points here, shorten the dress, and let's kind of clean up the edging here. Let it synchronize. There we go. Clean that up there. Like that. So now you can see it's kind of a big mess right here, but if I just simulate it, it's going to reattach the dress, sew it back together, and there we go. Now we've got a nice short dress. Now that's blowing in the wind. So it's very easy to make changes, make alterations, which I really like. Trying to design clothes in Maya, for example, and then making an alteration, it changes everything and can be a pain. Here it's very nice and easy to use. So I'm really excited to push this and see how far I can go with it. And then make some new assets for AM students, which is going to be a lot of fun. So if you guys have clothing that you would like to use in a future shot, maybe not right away, not clothing that you need now, but like sometime in the future, let me know. It'll kind of give me a library of things to actually practice with and try out for you guys and aim towards. So just wanted to show that as a possibility for new things to come. And does it have presets for types of clothing? Yes, it does. So this is the other cool thing about it. Instead of trying to figure out, okay, is the cloth leather or cotton or wool or all of this, and trying to figure out, well, how do I make that look good? If I select my clothing here, you can see I've made two types of cloth. I've made this piece here that goes over top, and then this lower piece here. Well, under each one, if you go down to the type, I can actually make it look, this is just visual. I can make it look like different patterns. So maybe make it shiny or matte or whatever, even make it look like metal. Now, does that change the physics? Not at all. It's just the look of it. But what I love is down here under physical properties, look at all the different kinds of cloth we have. So right now I am using silk chiffon, and maybe we want this to be a coat weight wool. Let's simulate that. There we go. Now this is going to be heavier material. You can see it's not blowing in the wind nearly as much. Maybe we want it to be really light, maybe linen. Now, a lot of this, I'm not sure what each of these are. I am not well versed in clothing materials, but maybe it's going to be denim, like jean material. Well, now you can see it's really flattening out and becoming heavier. Maybe it's actually leather. So maybe cowhide leather. Now it's really going to stiffen up right here. And let's just take the wind and make it a little stronger so we can see it actually blowing. So let's increase the strength of the wind, maybe 500. So you can see it's blowing it, but not very much. It's thick, heavy leather. But let's go back to silk chiffon, and there you go. Now it's blowing. It's like the dress in a windstorm. And you can see how it's wrapping around that leg. Like we see the silhouette of the leg underneath. And can you make the program simulate if the material is wet or dry? You can't really simulate wetness, but what you can do is change the physical properties of it. Hey, my name is Mike. Hello! So, what's cool about this is, let's say we want to make it feel wet. Well, wet cloth is heavier. It's got more weight to it. That's really what's making it heavy. So if I go into the details of this, I can actually just change my density. This will increase the weight of the cloth. So now you can see that cloth is going to sag downwards more compared to back here where it's nice and light. So by changing my density, I can change, it's still technically the same physical properties of, in this case, silk, but I'm weighing it down. And you can do a bunch of other things like friction coefficient. Like you can see it, you can really play with this. But I could just turn this up all the way, and now the dress is, and there we go. We just pulled the dress right off there. So let's stop the simulation, undo, and get it back into place. There we go. So you can see, like, you can just change those simulation properties, and that's what's going to change the actual physical properties of the dress. So let's put this back to silk of some kind. Then there we go. So a really cool program. And like I said, I do want to develop more of this. And I really want to base it on your suggestions on what, like, if you want to see a new shirt for Jules or Shaman or whatnot. For a future shot. Definitely give me time because I'm still learning the program and I don't have a ton of free time, but it's something I want to start developing for you guys so that your shots are a little bit more interesting and not just using, like, especially for some of the rigs, they have a very limited selection. So I want to give a bigger selection. Is this Houdini? This is Marvelous Designer. And if any of you are, well, let me just give you the link. There is version 8 coming out soon. I got version 7.5. So if you wait a little bit, you can get a trial version of the newer version 8. But there you go. So that's a really, it's definitely worth looking into. Now, with that said, this is more for advanced clothing. So this is going to be something I do want to explore later on in later streams. But the topic that I want to talk about today is simple clothing. And basically in terms of, what if you're animating a shot and you need your character to wear a dress? Not a complicated dress, not a frilly dress, not anything more than just a simple dress. But you want... yeah, they're adding sculpting. They're adding so much. I'm so excited to see where the next version of Marvelous comes in, version 8, and I think it's coming out soon. So that's gonna be exciting. In a lot of scenes that we're working on, we're doing something that doesn't need to have a whole outfit designed, but it could be that a character is wearing a dress, or maybe it's a superhero wearing a cape. And we have to make the choice of either simplifying our idea down to the point where we don't have anything and just have the character wear pants and no cape and just tights, which that is good. Like, simplifying an idea is not a bad thing. But it does limit us. What if we do want to make something that specifically has a dress? It's just part of the character or the environment, or just the atmosphere we want to create. It's not fun having to limit ourselves all the time. Now, when we come into a situation like that, without going into these specialized programs like Marvelous Designer, which, as most of you are students right now, I'm assuming, you don't have the disposable income to get Maya and then another program and all of these other things. That's kind of not a possibility. Now, with Maya, you can get an educational version, which is awesome. So within Maya, what can we do to give ourselves that possibility? So today I wanted to cover a few basics of cloth, and over the next few weeks we'll be exploring it a little bit more. Yeah, exactly, or the cloth is part of the story. There's a lot of times where you've got a character where they're picking something up, or they're moving something, or maybe they're in bed and you want them to like throw the covers off. Well, you need to simulate the cloth. Well, how do you do that? How do you have a character in bed and then drape a cloth over top of them and simulate that without running into a nightmare situation of logistics and just a pain of trying to rig things up? Now, before we go into an actual cloth sim, I did want to talk about rigging a dress, because this is specifically a question that I got asked was, is it better to rig a dress or simulate a dress if you just want to do something quick? And I just wanted to cover that very quickly, because at first glance, rigging a dress, even a simple one, might seem like, that'll be a little easier. So for example, let's see, how can I show this easiest? Actually, do I have? No, I don't. So to rig something, basically rigging something, to put it boy, I'm repeating myself there. Rigging something is basically attaching a object to controllers or to bones in Maya. So for example, if I wanted to create a simple dress, let's just take this cylinder here, and I'm just going to make it dress shaped. And we'll need a little bit more detail here, so I'm just going to insert some edge loops. Maybe 9. Yeah, that works. So let's say we've got this dress. It doesn't look much like a dress right now, but we've got this, and I want to rig it. Well, in order to rig it, I need to make a skeletal structure for this dress, which basically involves making a skeleton. And rigging is one of those things that I do want to show at another time as well, how to rig simple things. But for now, I'm just going to use this as a demo purpose. So let's say I want to rig a simple dress here. And I'm just going to do this very roughly. If I was actually rigging this, I would be much more careful. But for now, let's kind of just bring this in. Something like that. And when you're rigging something, basically the more joints you have, the more skeletal structure you have, the more detailed you'll be able to animate something. Let's see. There we go. And let's kind of add this in. So I can relatively quickly rig something up here that will allow us to animate this dress. So I've got a basic skeletal structure. Once I have that, blow the nose with a handkerchief, put a towel, open the curtain. Yeah, all of that. We can technically rig things, but the rigging process is a pain if you're not used to it. And for most of us as animators, we're not riggers. This is not our day job. This is not what we study. We don't want to have to learn a whole new profession just to get a little piece of cloth in our scene. So here I've got my joints in place. I'll take my dress material, and under rigging here, I'm just going to go to skin, bind skin. This will attach them together. And when you're looking at rigs, this is basically how they're set up. So now if I take this, well, and it looks like I didn't bind it properly. Let's see. Undo that. Oh wait, do I have multiple? Oh no, it's all good there. And skin. Oh wait, I know what I did. I didn't reset my options after I was doing some testing. So there we go. I've created a simple dress rig that I can animate and tweak. And you can see that works pretty well. And in some cases, this might be all I need. But the problem with this is as soon as you add it onto a character whose legs are moving and all of this stuff, really all it does is create a tent over top of them that kind of moves with their legs. It doesn't feel nice. And it doesn't give fantastic results unless the character is wearing like a really poofy dress, like those Victorian era dresses where they've got the big, like, I'm thinking like Cinderella, that big butt thing cage that goes around them. Then something like this would work wonderfully, because really it's just a cage that goes around. The character needs to bend a little bit. In that case, great. I can just kind of take all of these and then rotate the next joints down and start to shape that right here. Nice. And if I had more controls, we would get more control. But you start getting these weird deformations as well, where things start influencing each other in weird ways, which can be a really big pain. It's a long process. What if we just, like, all the examples that you mentioned here, handkerchief, towel, curtains, shower curtain, a bed sheet where the character is under the sheets, and you just want it, you don't need to actually even have them moving it, you just want it to be there. How do we do something like that? Well, for that we need to use cloth simulation. So you can find this in Maya by going under the FX menu here. Now if you're using an older version of Maya, it'll be under the dynamics section here. It's not called FX, it's called dynamics. But what you want to look for is NCloth. NCloth is Maya's cloth simulation tool. It's built into Maya itself, which is fantastic. It's actually a really good tool, and you can use it for a lot of things that isn't even cloth. I've seen NCloth used to simulate muscles. So when you have a character flexing or doing something like that, you can make it so that it simulates muscle fibers. Now Maya does also have a muscle simulation, but that's more for rigging. And let's see, where do they have it here? I forget exactly where they put it. Let's see, it's not in there. But anyway, and cloth can be used for a lot of things like that. Another thing I've seen people use it for is metal girders and things like that. And you would think, well, with its cloth, how can it simulate metal? Well, basically, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when I get into the attributes, you make a cloth object that is extremely stiff to the point that is basically metal, but you make it tearable. So basically, if you have to have a character like swing a beam at someone and you don't want it to crack in half, you simulate a cloth object that is tearable. And by tearable, I mean like it tears, not that it's horrible. It tears, but you make it really stiff. So when something hits, it's going to tear, but it's just going to crack or look like it cracks. And you got a metal beam. Ta-da! Or a character impacting into metal beams or wooden sticks or anything like that. Endcloth is extremely useful in those regards. Now, that takes a lot of studying, a lot of practice to do stuff like that. We can work with it simply as animators. And thank you for following, Lindsay. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So for today, that's what we're going to be focusing on. Simple clothing simulation for animators. Now, one thing I do want to mention, and I'm going to stress this throughout here, so bear with me as I repeat this many times, is when you are doing cloth simulation, it is a slow process. Typically, you only do cloth simulation once you are done with your animation. You're not going to use it as you're animating. You might kind of do a few tests as you're animating here and there to make sure things are working in general. But as you are animating, throughout your blocking plus refining, even the polishing phases, you're not typically going to be dealing with clothing or end cloth. You're going to be adding that after you're done. And up to that point, you would use either a stand-in. So for example, a character's under some blankets, just put like a piece of geometry over them and then animate it falling off very simply, crudely. You could do that. Or just pretend that it's there. Or what I personally prefer to do is use my grease pencil or a draw over tool and draw over top of it. So for example, I'll take my animation, export it, play blast it, and then bring it into something like Krita, a 2D drawing tool, and draw over top and just draw the blanket or whatever I need, the dress, where I want it to be. That way at least I can see the shape and tell my director, yeah, this is what I'm aiming for. But just keep that in mind as we're doing this. So, cloth simulation. How do we work with it? Well, let's open Endcloth here, and I'm just going to tear this open. So, cloth simulation really just depends on two types of objects. We need to have a cloth object, or an end cloth right here, and we need passive colliders. Passive colliders are basically objects for the cloth to collide with. That's it. If the cloth has nothing to collide with, it's just going to fall through the world, and that's it. It's not going to do anything. Oh, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial here. And keep in mind, this goes for everyone. If you have questions throughout this, or if you find I'm going too fast or want me to repeat something, let me know. I'm happy to help to answer questions. So we've got these two different objects, and really that's it. There's not much more to cloth, the simple version, than that. So let's make a simple cloth. Well, let's do a simple assignment, and you see this in art schools a lot. We're going to take a sphere. Let's scale it up here. About there. Let's create a polygon plane. Scale that up. And then we'll create another polygon plane for the cloth. Now, as you're creating cloth, one thing you want to do is make sure you name things. So this is going to be called the ground. This is going to be called my cloth, and I like to add geo to it because it is the geometry of the cloth. And this one I'll just call ball. There we go. So it's very important that you start naming things right off the bat, because once you start adding stuff, it's going to, well, you'll see, it'll be very important, or else things get messed up and it's hard to find. Okay. And to make this easier to see, I'm just going to add a new material to the cloth here. And let's just make it red. Red stands out nicely. There we go. So we've got this nice red material. Now, the other thing to keep in mind when you're simulating cloth is cloth depends on detail. The amount of detail you have in your base object will determine how much you'll be able to deform the cloth later on. So for this one, I'm just going to up my amount of detail here. Let's go, no, that's a little too much. Maybe this amount of detail. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about detail and how we can work with it as animators in a little bit. For now, just keep in mind that the more detail you have, the more realistic the simulation will be. Also, the slower it will be. So it's a balancing game. So we've got that. Great. So we've got our sphere, our ground, and our cloth object. Well, if I hit play right now, nothing happens, because these are just simple pieces of geometry. There's no physics in here. There's nothing telling Maya how these objects should react. So how do we start creating cloth? Well, the first thing is let's create the cloth object. I'll select my piece of cloth that I want right here, go to End Cloth, and I'll just hit Create End Cloth. Now, if we open up the options, it's pretty simple. And really, what the main option that you'll have is picking the solver that you wanted to attach to. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth on this, but basically it means that when you create an end cloth, a solver is what calculates the cloth material. It's what controls the cloth. And if you have, let's say, 3 characters wearing shirts, well, you could have that same, and there's all similar shirts. You could have one solver controlling all of those instead of 3 separate solvers. So it just kind of simplifies things in that sense. Like for simple cloth, don't have to worry about it. Just hit create, done. And as we do this, we'll notice that 2 things happened. We get the nucleus node created here and an end cloth node. Now the end cloth, this is the actual clothing object. The nucleus, this is the core of the physics. This is what controls the physics of the world here. So we'll check back in on those in a little bit, but let's just hit play and see what happens. It simulates, but there's no interaction. It just cuts right through everything. Now, when you're simulating, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, when you're going to simulate, always rewind back to the very first frame. So if I just jump to frame 58 here and hit play, in this case, it's going to calculate. But if I had a more complex shot, it would just break things. When you're simulating, always jump back to frame 1 and then hit simulate. Second thing, you'll need to go into your options here, settings, preferences, and make sure that your timeline is set to play every frame. If it's not set to play every frame, simulations won't calculate properly. So by default, I just have my Maya set to play every frame and only go up to 24 frames per second. So that way, I've just got that set all the time. I'm ready for simulations at any time. Hey, Susalos, hello! Welcome to the stream! And thank you so much for posting all that music all the time in the Pratt Bros Discord. It's so awesome. I'm falling behind on listening to them, but I'm hoping to do that this weekend. Take a little bit of a break and just listen to some awesome music. Let's see. So we've got our nucleus here. It controls the simulation, and then we have our cloth. But as you can see, nothing's interacting because the rest of the objects have no bearing on the world. They're still just basic geometry. So if we want this to interact, all we need to do is select the objects we want the cloth to interact with and create passive colliders. So here you'll see if we open up the options, we can select which solver to control it with. So we want it to stay in line with the same one, nucleus 1 in this case. Again, that's the solver is what calculates all those pieces of cloth together as one whole. If we switch solvers, then nothing's going to work. Usually you never have to even worry about them. Just hit create and you're done. So we'll hit make collide here. And this was the ground. You'll notice that we get an N rigid now. So I'm going to start renaming things before we get too far. This is going to be N rigid ground. This is going to be N cloth. And I'm just going to call it red because it's my red fabric here. And now let's hit play. Now we get this simulation is falling, and before I go too far, I'm going to have to increase my frame range or else we're going to hit that. So simulate that, let it play through. It's a little slow, but you can see it's falling, 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 and then it stops. Doesn't look much like cloth, does it? It just hit the ground and then stopped. The reason it did this and didn't actually deform in any way is because Maya's physics are perfect. This is a perfectly flat piece of cloth falling at a perfect 9.8 meters per second, which is gravity, downwards with an equal amount of force with no wind resistance. It is a perfect world. And if that happens in a perfect world, well, you're not going to get any deformation. It's just going to land perfectly. So let's add a little imperfection to this. Let's take this and just rotate it a little bit so it hits with one corner first. Now let's see what happens. Let's again reverse my timeline and hit play. And now it's falling. It's going to miss the sphere, just cuts right through. But now we get that. Doesn't look really good, does it? It's floating on the ground for one thing, and you can see it's just slip sliding away. Still doesn't look much like cloth. Now as it falls off here, we get that. Ugh. What's going on here? Like, what? Why is this not simulating correctly and just feels gross? Let's do one more thing. Let's make this sphere collidable, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here. So again, take the object, create passive collider. There we go. Now let's hit play one more time. Now it should collide with the sphere. And oh, we're finally getting deformation. Now it's looking like cloth. But it collides and just slides away. Oh, take care, TKW. Thank you so much for dropping by. The way this moves, it reminds me of those old DVD screensavers. Yeah, exactly. It just kind of bounces from corner to corner. Look at that. Does cloth do that? No. Cloth shouldn't just slide across the ground and hover in the air. If it did that, man, like you'd take off your clothes in the morning and it would just be clothes sliding all over the place. You couldn't find anything, couldn't fold it. It would just disappear into the closets in who knows which space. This is not cloth. And this is where a lot of people, when they start working with cloth and they just want to do it simply, they don't want to make a super complicated thing. They look at it and go, oh, why? I quit. What do I do? How do I fix this? How do I make this feel like cloth? It's supposed to be a cloth simulation, and all I'm getting is this horrible slidiness. Whereas when we went into Marvelous Designer, oh look, I hit cloth, I simulate it, and oops, not that. There we go. Simulate it, and wouldn't you know, it works like cloth, the way it should. Yeah, it needs friction. Exactly. So when we're working on here, there's a few things that we need to do in order to make our cloth feel like cloth. And this is especially true when you're working with rigs. So first step, we need to make sure that our nucleus matches our world scale. So this is kind of tricky to wrap your mind around when you first get started. Especially if you're not used to like a 3D world space. But basically in Maya, you can design things based on different scale values. So what this means is you can kind of use the grid as a comparison. So if you see this ball compared to the grid, you can see it's pretty big. It's at a large scale in comparison to Maya's world. And the bigger objects become, the more you have to scale your physics to match those scale attributes. So for NCloth, nCloth is set to be at a meter resolution. Or how to put this properly. It's supposed to be set for smaller simulations. With most rigs that you work with, they are set to what's called real-world measurements or real-world ratios. There's a lot of terms for it. Real-world centimeters. Basically what that means is, let's say I have a box that is 30 centimeters wide. Well, if I create a cube, polygon cube, to make this match my real-world scenario, I would scale this to be 30 units. That's 30 centimeters right in there. So a rig that is rigged to real-world centimeters is going to have a large scale. So for example, a character that is 1.5 meters tall, that would be 1500 centimeters. So my scale Y would be 1500. Well, you can see how tall that is in comparison to my world scale here. Now, if you're used to a imperial measurements, inches, feet, all of that, you just need to convert everything to centimeters. And this will give you your scale of objects. Great. How does that help us? Well, if we take our object here and we keep that in mind, that the bigger things are, the more we have to scale it to a real world scenario. If I go to my nucleus, again, the nucleus is what controls the physics of the world, not the physics of the individual object, but the physics of the world, or at least all the objects that are attached to that nucleus. And let's open up my attribute editor here. Well, here we have a lot of attributes. We have our transform attributes. These don't matter. Don't need to worry about those. Gravity and wind. Hey, look at that, 9.8, like I mentioned before. That's Earth gravity. We've got our gravity direction. It goes down. This is, whenever you see 3 attributes, is X, Y, and Z. Well, the Y is -1, so it's going down in a negative direction. If I put it to 1, that would make gravity reverse and everything would go up. So we've got that, we've got air density, wind, all of that. Great. Would nucleus be the same as origin? Maybe for different programs. Every program uses different words. The nucleus, you could basically consider it the physics controller. It controls the physics for the world, or again, for those objects that are attached to it. So it's, what's the gravity for these objects? What's the direction of the gravity? Here we could turn on use ground plane. This will basically, if I didn't want to use this ground plane, I could simulate a fake ground plane. That can be useful from time to time. We've got solver attributes. These basically determine how many calculations go into calculating the collisions. For now, we're going to leave that at default. Not going to worry about that. That's why I asked. Blender uses the term origin. So yeah, I haven't used Blender's simulations, but it should be the same thing. If the origin in Blender is what's controlling like your gravity and whatnot, then it's pretty much the same thing. But down here, below all the like more common attributes, we get 2 specific attributes here. We've got time. This basically controls when the simulation should start. We want to start at the beginning, so leave that alone. And scale. Scale, this is what we're interested in. Right now, the space scale, the size of the world, is set to 1. That's too big. It's not simulating to the right scale of our objects. So to set this correctly, we just need to know what our objects are scaled to. Now, I just made random objects, so the number here is not going to match 100%, but for a rig that is set to real-world centimeters, this would be changing the space scale to 0.01. You're just changing the decimal point. And this will give you a real world simulation of cloth that would work in a real world. So what's this going to do? Well, let's compare, because it's going to be pretty immediate here. If I hit play right now, it takes, let's see, let's count this, and I'm going to watch here. Until this hits the sphere, it takes about 40 frames, or 40 to 50 frames right in there before the cloth hits the sphere. Let's set this to 0.01, so real world centimeters. And just to, for anyone who's not used to animation, 40 to 50 frames, that's about 2 seconds. It took 2 seconds for this cloth to fall this distance and hit the sphere. That would be like dropping a piece of cloth from like right up here at the top of the camera, and then it go 1, 2, and then it hits my head. That's very slow cloth. But we've changed our space scale here. So let's play this again now and see what happens. It just falls super quick. It took less than 10 frames, probably 4 or 5 frames before that cloth hit the sphere. So now, not only is it reacting the way gravity would for this scene, we're getting a little bit of a bounce and everything, it's simulating better. And you can even see as it tumbles away into oblivion here, look at that, that's actually pretty awesome looking now. The way it's just falling into oblivion here, it makes me think of Dracula's cape in the Castlevania series. It's still super slidey, but that's, and kind of wiggly, it looked like Jello right there. But that definitely feels a lot more like cloth. So, step 1, done. And this is something you always want to double check. Does your nucleus, does its space scale match your objects? And especially when you're working with a rig, this is very important to know. Okay, done. Step 2. Is this cloth actually simulating cloth? Keep in mind, like I mentioned at the beginning, N-cloth, it's called N-cloth because it's used for simulating cloth, but it's also used for simulating anything that bends, really. Muscles. It can be used to simulate metal that gets bent, hard objects, soft objects, anything. So is this really simulating cloth right now, or is it just doing a random simulation of some random material? Let's see. So technically the cloth was falling farther with the larger scale. Yeah, exactly. The space scale was set to meters. So when we look at this, this should only be a few centimeters distance. So a little bit like that. Maya was seeing this as meters. So instead of, let's say this was 5 centimeters, which I don't have a ruler here. 5 centimeters would be about there, let's say. So 5 centimeters would be about that. Maybe 2 inches, something like that. Okay, that's a big distance. Maya was seeing that as 100 times that. So it would be 5, instead of 5 centimeters, 5 meters, which would be about 15 feet. Yeah, it thought the sphere was as tall as a house, exactly. So if you imagine this, like this gigantic, monstrous sphere, and this gigantic, monstrous spaceship that's falling on top of it, well, yeah, then that scale makes sense now. Now, yeah, of course it's going to take 2 seconds for it to fall because it's this giant thing crashing from the atmosphere, when we really want it to just be a tiny cloth falling on a tiny sphere. So the scale of the scene was too big. So we just want to make sure it's set correctly to our scene. So we've got that. Now, for the cloth, to put it simply, we need to make sure that the cloth is acting like cloth and not some random object. So to do this, we can select the cloth geo and go to the cloth shape here, or you can just select your nCloth object right here in the outliner. This will give you all of the attributes for the actual individual cloth objects. So in this case, this red sheet here. And we've got a lot of things. We've got collision attributes. We've got dynamic properties. So this is how stiff the object is, how bendy it is, and all of this stuff. We've got force fields. We've got wind fields. We've got pressure. We've got quality, which is how the quality of the simulation. And then a bunch of stuff that basically after quality, you don't really have to worry too much about it for simple simulations. But we've got all of these things. Where do we start? Well, first, right here, presets. If I click on presets, look at that. Maya comes in with a bunch of different presets that we can work with. That we don't have to try and figure out all of these random attributes and hope we get something that matches a t-shirt material. When you look at that, t-shirt, done. So, and you can see here, we've got putty, we've got lava, we've got honey, concrete, definitely not shirt materials or cloth materials. nCloth can simulate a lot of different things. So let's make a t-shirt material, just a basic kind of cotton blend. So I'll go to t-shirt and I'll just hit replace. This is going to replace all of the attributes in here that we saw earlier and just set them to a t-shirt material. Hit replace. Now let's hit simulate one more time. There we go. But it's still falling. It's still sliding all over the place. Why? And this is where a lot of people quit. Like, even if they've done everything else, suddenly everything is super slippery and it doesn't make sense. Why? What's missing here? And really it is just friction. We need to turn up our friction. So we can do this in a few different ways. Let's turn up the friction of the objects here. So right now, the ball and the ground, if we select these and go to, or we can select these here, the actual n-rigid objects. We've got our collisions and a few other things, but right here, friction, it's set to 0.1. So friction is extremely low. This is basically ice at this point. Let's just turn this up. I'm going to turn it up all the way. Friction set to 1. And let's see what happens here. Haha! It doesn't slide anymore. Now, actually, you can see that, oh, it's inching along. But that's because the cloth itself also has friction. So if I look at the nCloth here, go to my collisions, and friction right there, that's set to 0.3, still pretty low. Let's set that to 1. Let's just set everything to 1 and hit play. There we go. Now it's no longer inching like it was before. It's still settling because of the weight, but we've got friction. And the weight is slowly pulling it off here. So there we go. We've changed the dynamics of the world just to get this to stick in place. But that's the process. We need to make sure we add all those in. Yeah, exactly. Just color everything blue and it's all ice. Exactly. That's the easy way to do it. Don't need to go through all of these settings here. Now, the other thing that I might have done is I might have put my space scale a little too low. If it's too low, basically what will happen is it's going to compress everything so that even if you've got a ton of friction, it's going to just try to push things too much because the space scale is too low. I'm going to try not adjust that too much though. I want to keep it simple. And actually it looks like I've got wind direction as well. That would definitely do it. So wind direction, that is in the x-axis 1 unit. So that's going to be blowing it screen left here, which is, yeah, you can see that that's where it's trying to go. Let's increase this to 10. Actually, maybe 100. Maybe not 1,000. That's going to be a little strong. And see what happens here. So now you can see it definitely blew that across here. So that's going to be adding some things we don't want. But there we go. Now we've got cloth. Let's see, if you were to simulate concrete, would the cloth break at a large enough scale? You can set it to break. By default, it won't though. So if I set this to concrete and then simulate this, it kind of imploded through the object. It actually bent. It fell with enough force to bend the concrete. But it didn't break it. In order to break it, what we would need to do is go to our... Where do they have it here again? Let's see. Yeah, end constraints and create a tearable surface. So now you can see it tore a hole right through. Right there. Now, tearable surfaces are something we'll have... I would want to go in at another time. Maybe if we have time today, we can go into it a little bit. But it basically makes it so that the object can actually break apart. Is that a space scale issue or something like rigidness density of the cloth that would prevent it from deforming to the extreme? In this case, the fact that if you mean like the way it impacted, that's going to be a cloth, the cloth dynamic properties, specifically like bend resistance, shear resistance, all of these things. That's going to be what keeps it from bending across. So if I, let's see, turn down the rigidity for example, and then push play. Let's see, we've got rigidity, deform resistance. There you go. Now it just bloop, falls over on top. So I meant earlier when you change your scale from... Oh, okay. Yeah, so if I change that, that would change how hard it hits. So it would definitely affect how much you would need to deform something or how it would bounce across. And End-Cloth Simulation, it is available for Maya 2015. It'll be under the Dynamics menu here. So right now I'm under FX. It would be under Dynamics. Now, one thing I do want to double check is it looks like I do have some residual motion here happening. I think it was my air density that was causing me issues. Yeah, let's try that. And I'm just going to do something. I'm going to turn down my friction back to the default. So let's take this and make it back into a t-shirt material, replace. And let's see if it keeps sliding. Yeah. So I think that's what the problem was. My air density was causing some issues for some reason. But we've got that. So we've got our cloth object. Now you can see we didn't start with a high detail object, so it's not the most detailed. And we get these, it doesn't really look like cloth, does it? Well, the nice thing with Maya is if I select this and just hit 3 on the keyboard, on number 3, this will smooth the object down, and suddenly that looks a lot more cloth-like. Actually looks pretty good. So I can take a decently low-res simulation, which works pretty fast, and then make it look decent. So you're not having to deal with massive, huge objects that are being simulated. So that helps a lot. Okay. So with that, we've got a cloth object, and we've got the world. Now, it took us a long time to get here, but really all we did was created our geometry, made the cloth object a end cloth, made anything we want to collide with it a passive collider, made sure our world scale, the scale attribute in the nucleus, was set to match the world that we were working in, and then just changed the presets for the cloth so that it's actually cloth and not some random material. That's pretty much it. So basically we've been here for an hour and something, and we covered something that should take like 30 seconds to set up. Maybe a minute. But really, that is cloth at its most basic level. Now, as we go more into cloth, the next thing we need to start working with is the attributes of cloth. Now, for the nucleus, we went through those pretty quick. Really, there's not too much here. You've got gravity and wind. You just want to make sure these are set to a good level. Ground plane, this is basically going to replace this plane here if you don't have one. And then you've got your solver, which this basically is the quality of the simulation. Done. Now for the cloth itself, we have a lot more. Now I'm not going to cover all of this, I don't want to make this into the technicalities of every single attribute. That's going to take too long. But if we look through here, a lot of these are self-explanatory. So for example, bounce. Well, how bouncy is this object? Let's turn this up all the way and simulate. You can see it bounced a lot more there, right when it hit. Compared to here, where it just kind of flows through. It didn't bounce up and straight down. Friction. We already covered friction. If I turn this all the way down, now this object has no friction other than the world around it. So let's put that back to 0.3 here. Stickiness. Well, how sticky is it? Let's just put that all the way up. And now it's actually going to stick. So this is what would simulate like if you had honey or something like that, and you wanted like a character to step in something and then it just sticks to their foot. This is the attribute that's going to do that. Now we've got a bunch of collision property maps. This is basically so that's different parts of the material are different thicknesses or stickiness. Like it maybe only one corner of the cloth is sticky. For most cloth simulations, especially simple animation ones, which is what we're aiming for, don't have to worry about any of that. That's extra stuff that is beyond our scope. We don't need to worry about it at all. Dynamic properties. What is the cloth? How is it simulated? For the most part, we don't have to do too much with this for simple cloth simulations. And this is going to be stuff I'm going to look into a little bit more when we actually do a simple dress in just a second here. And then we've got, again, dynamic property maps. Don't need to worry about those. Force fields. These are basically ways of controlling how the object deforms. Wind fields, it's kind of just adding wind to this object. So air push, let's just put this all the way up here and see what happens. You can see it's trying to flatten out the cloth here. It's just pushing that cloth ever so slightly. Turn that down and a little less right there. We've got pressure. Pressure, this is something I'll cover when we go into the dress a little bit more. And then quality. Quality is basically, again, how many calculations is I going to do for this object. And this is something I'm going to go into quality when we do the actual animation simulation. So that's not going to be today, but in a future stream. Because this work is going to make more sense when there's actually an animation that we have to test and troubleshoot. That's where this comes in. For a simple little thing like this, we're not going to have any results. Okay, so we've got our cloth. Yay! We've got a simulation. Yay! Okay. How do we work with a rig on this? And this is the moment that we start running into problems. So let me just make a new scene here and we'll just bring in Aya. So I'm just going to open up Aya here. Let that open up. And Voila. Okay. So let's say we want Aya here to have a dress. Well, first, let's keep it simple. I'm going to model a dress for her. To do that, I'm just going to turn off NURBS curves here. Oh, actually, I need to select the body first. I want to make the body selectable right there. And I'm just going to turn down her resolution. That way we have a little bit of a faster playback here. Don't need to go super detailed yet. Okay. So now let's just turn off controllers here. So I want to make a dress for her. To do this, I'm just going to hide the pants here. Let's see, turn curves back on. I just want to make sure to turn off correctives. So correctives happen on a lot of rigs. So you'll notice by default, her knees are actually way thinner than they should be. Like that. Look at that, those puny little knees. The reason this is done is so that the knee geometry doesn't intersect with the clothing when you're animating. But when you turn off the clothing, you don't need the knee to be a tiny little stick. So you turn those off right here. Some rigs have them, some don't. It all depends on the rig. So let's take that. And then I'm going to select the body here and just duplicate it. So I just hit Control-D to duplicate the body. And really what I'm going to be doing is I want the dress to kind of be very skin tight around the waist. And instead of just making it from scratch, what I can do is select this. I'm just going to delete the edge loop here. Then delete the faces up above it. And if you're wondering how I'm doing that, select one face, hold down Shift, double click on the next one. It'll select the entire loop all the way around. And then since I've got a cut now, if I double click on the part above it and hit delete, it'll just select everything that's not attached. Do that down here, same thing, double click, create that space, and then just double click on all the faces down here, delete. There we go. So let's assign a blend again and make it red. And same red as before. There we go. So we're gonna have a nice little red dress. Okay. We've got that. Let's actually just make the dress now. I'm going to extrude this outwards. And let's just go straight down. Whoop. And then scale it out. Make a nice big dress, not something skin tight. If we wanted to do something skin tight, we would just use a wrap deformer like we would normally do. No, I want to make an actual dress. And I'm going to up the amount of divisions here just so we have a little bit more detail. Let's go maybe 30, something like that. There we go. So there we go. We've got a dress shape, at least. Put it back into place here. And let's just hide the shirt so we can see the thickness here. So you'll see right now it's still set to her body size right there. That's not good. We don't want it to be so skin tight that it lines up with her body. So I'm going to scale this up a bit. To do that, I'm just going to select my vertices, select all of those, and then move them out along the normals. This will just kind of pop it out ever so slightly right there. About that. That's good. There we go. So we've got our dress. And there we go. Well, yay. Let's see. Hey, Mickey, thank you so much for the subscription. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you. So we've got the dress here, and let's pull it out of the rig because I duplicated. It's still within the rig's geometry here. So if ever you have to pull something out, the way I like to do it, I'll just hit Control G with nothing selected to create a null object. It's an empty group. Select both of those objects, so null object, then the dress, hit Control G again, and that'll pull the dress geometry out of the rig. Basically, I'm just pulling that out, like so. Then I can delete the groups. And let's call this dress geo. There we go. And before I do anything else, I'm just going to edit delete by type history on the dress so we don't have any problems with history. There we go. Yay, we've got a dress. We've got the geometry. All good. How do I simulate this? What do I select in order to simulate this dress? I could select the body, but the problem with selecting a rig, and this is one of those things that when you're dealing with cloth is a big, let's see, I'm always amused at how deceptively simple things can be when it comes to 3D modeling. Yeah, sometimes it's super easy, sometimes it's insanely complex on something that you would think is should just be one button, and then it's like this roundabout thing. Well, kind of like this dress here. How do I attach it to the body? Logistically, I should just take the body geometry, make that a collidable object, take the dress geometry, make that a collidable object. Good. The problem, though, is that the body here is rigged, which means that there are a lot of calculations going into this rig. And you can see just like here in the inputs, all of these are different smooth binds and different things that are coming in to adjust this body's deformations. So if we use that as our solid object for the dress to deform against, we're going to run into some issues. We're going to run into an issue of horrible slowdowns and potential issues with our animations. It's just not going to work correctly. So what do we do? Do we just put in temporary colliders, which if you've watched my streams before when I did the cloth simulation, and actually, instead, for anyone who hasn't seen it, let me just open up a video here. Let's see, cloth sim. Okay. Which one is the latest one? I need to name my things better. I've got version 5.4.3.2.1 and then just with weird names afterwards. Oh no, that's not it. Okay, cloth here. So this was a cloth simulation test I had done on stream a while back, where a character picks up a cloth and throws it. Now this isn't the final version. You can see how his hand's not quite holding it right there. But he throws the cloth. Great. Well, the way I did that, the way I had him hold it and had it interact with his hand is I just parented some simple pieces of geometry to his hand to act as colliders, just a polygon cube and a polygon cylinder. Simple objects. I didn't make his body a collider because that slows things down. So what do we do? Well, worst case scenario, you can make the body a collider, but it's not ideal. Instead, what we want to do is we want to create a collision object for the rig. So there's a lot of ways you can do this, but a very quick, and this is one of those things that you kind of have to understand the way Maya works and handles geometry, but it's kind of a little trick. Let's create a polygon cube. So I'm just going to create a simple cube here. Let's scale it up. And actually, no, I'll just leave it at its default right here in the center. You can see tiny little cube. And I'm going to call this body collider. So this is going to act as our collision object. Okay. Well, it's a cube. I'm going to delete its history. So now it's just a simple cube. Can't get much simpler than that. Okay. Well, in Maya, what makes this a cube? What makes this actually know that it is a cube? If we go into Window Node Editor, and this is more behind the scenes, you don't actually have to do any of this here, but let's branch this out. You'll see that the collider here, this is our object, is being controlled by this shape node. This shape node comes in and tells the object what shape it should be. A cube. Okay. Well, what if we changed that? What if instead of the cube shape object telling the cube what shape it should be, or our body collider what shape it should be, what if we connected the rig's shape node to the cube? So for this is where you kind of have to know your rig. I cannot use this body here, this default skin, and every rig's going to be different here. So this is, you kind of have to just explore your rig a little bit. But in this rig, the way it's set up is that there are multiple pieces of geometry. So you'll have your render geometry, that's the super high res version. You have your anim geometry, that's the one we're looking at now, which is for animation. But then below that, you have your skin geometry and base geometry. And the skin geometry is the actual one that follows the skeleton. Everything else just connects to it. So what I need to do is open this up, and I need to find my body geo right here. Again, every rig is going to be different. Some you can just use the main skin. It'll work. So I've got that. Let's go to Windows, General Editors, Connection Editor. And what I want to do is I want to find the out mesh. And to do this, I'm actually going to need to select the shape node here. So reload left, find my, right up here. There's so many attributes. It is, where, there you go, out mesh. This is the attribute I want. It's the information that is telling the next object what shape it should be. Now I'm going to take my cube here, select its shape node, load that on the right side, and I want the rig's mesh information to tie into the in mesh right here of the cube. Boop. And what that's basically done, if I take my rig and move that now, and let's see, why is my, oh yeah, that's why I need to reset that. If I move this, let's see what the best way would be. Oh, I just need to hide it. So if I hide this now, there we go. This is our body collider. This is still that cube, quote unquote. But now it's the rig. It's shaped like the rig, but it's got no history to it. It's got no connections. It's a simple piece of geometry, not much more. And the only thing that's connected into it is that it follows the original shape. So, for example, let's kind of move this over to the side here. If I move her arm, it matches the shape. It's not technically rigged, it's not technically animated, it's a simple piece of geometry that is mimicking another. It's just taking its output. That's super light. There's not much information to it, which makes it perfect for simulating because it's going to speed things up. So again, to make that whole thing a little simpler to kind of understand is you find your rig's main mesh. In this case, I needed to find the actual skin mesh, not the anim mesh or the high res mesh. It's the original underlying mesh. And then you tie its shape, the shape node, tie its out mesh into the in mesh of a simple cube or any simple object. And you're going to create an object that you can use for a collider. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, definitely let me know, because this is one of those things that it took me a long time to kind of figure out. But once you do get it, it makes life a whole lot easier when dealing with simulation. So for now, I'm going to turn off the original. I'm not even sure what to say. Yeah, it is kind of like you have to try and wrap your brain around this weird concept, and it isn't really apparent at the beginning of why this is helpful, but it does make a big difference. So I'm actually going to save my scene here because I don't want it to crash and lose everything. Not that we've done a ton of work so far. So let's see. Let's just call it dress. Is the main mesh also what you edit if you want to modify the model? If you want to modify the model, you would edit, in this case, the base mesh. So base geo here. Now it depends on what kind of edits you want to make. If you're just trying to do a little bit of an edit, you can do it with any of the meshes, whatever you're working with. If you're trying to do a bigger change, the lower you go, the more it'll kind of affect all of them. And this is where, and this kind of goes on a different topic, but if you want to attach a hat or something to a character, and for those of you who have used these rigs or any rigs with deformers, you'll know this. When you use certain controls, for example, on Aya here, she has these really awesome facial controls that allow you to squash and stretch the head. But when you parent something to the head, just a simple constraint or parent, the hat or object won't move with this control. It's just following the basic motion of the head, which means that you're limiting yourself from moving this control. But if you attach a hairpiece or something down below that on the base level, then it can be affected. So it really helps in certain ways in that sense. And can you show us again the node editor with the new connections? Definitely. So with the node editor, if I select the body collider here and just go to window node editor, you'll see that where are you here? There we go. And actually I'll need to select the body shape. There we go. So now it's just the Aya shot ready geo shape connecting to the in mesh right there. Out mesh into in mesh. And that's it. That's all I added, was this one connection between the original rig's base mesh and then the box's shape node. And that makes the whole difference. So let's keep going with our cloth simulation here. So now we've got our objects. Let's actually make the cloth. So same thing as before. To do this, I'll select my cloth object. Let's go to end cloth, create end cloth, and done. So I'm going to take this gravity direction. I don't need any wind direction. Just make sure that all my options are good. I'm going to use a plane this time. So instead of creating a ground plane myself, I'll just use the built-in Nucleus's ground plane. And let's hit play. Well, we're not getting some good results. First, we need to increase our range, like so. And the dress falls, and it definitely doesn't feel like cloth. Cloth should not hold itself up like that. And it's going right through the body. Okay, not great. It's also falling very slowly. So same thing as before. Let's go through our options. First, I'm going to take my body collider. Let's create a passive collider with that. And there we go. So now we've got the body colliding with the cloth. And to double check, let's just hit play. And the cloth is going around the body now. This, you can see just how slow this is though. Look how slow it's simulating. Not good. So, step 1, select the nucleus, set the scale attributes to your scene scale. For this rig, she is rigged in real world centimeters, so that's going to be 0.01. All of a sudden, when I hit play now, that feels a little bit more like cloth. Definitely not what I want in a dress where it just peels off like that, but that's feeling a little bit better. Okay, let's take the cloth here and just very quickly, I'm going to set the preset to, let's just stick with the t-shirt material we were working with before. Okay, so with that, hit play. That's going to feel a little bit more cloth-like, but the dress is just falling to the ground. Okay, how do we actually get it to stick in place? And whenever I see people first start learning cloth, this is the part that they've finally mastered everything else. They've finally gotten to this point. Now what? You can't use a regular constraint. A regular constraint is just going to lock this whole thing up and break things. So what do we do? How do we set this up so that the dress stays on the waist when the character is moving, or just in general? For this, we need to use N constraints. Now, there are a lot of them, and not all of them are actually constraints in the traditional sense. So, for example, a tearable surface. Basically, what that's doing is it doesn't sound like a constraint, because you would typically assume a constraint is holding two objects together. But a tearable surface is taking every vertice of the object and constraining them together with a constraint that is breakable. Depending on how much force is being put on that constraint, it could break and let go, which tears the surface. That's what makes it tearable. It's a constraint. So we've got a lot of different things here. Now, in this case, I basically want to connect these bands here to the body and make it kind of like a waistband, so these won't move. Well, to do this, I want to use a component-to-component constraint. Basically, I want to select the components of the body. Let's go into wireframe here. And I want to select the edges right along where I want to constrain to. So let's take all these edges here. Okay. Now I'm going to select my cloth and select those same edges. This is where using the same base geometry can be very helpful. Actually, maybe undo that and make sure I hold down Shift. Okay. So now you can see I've got the components of the body along with that cloth selected. And I'm just going to create a component-to-component constraint. And this is what you want to see. You want to see these little dots with these tiny little connecting lines between them. Basically, Maya is going to look at what you have selected and find the nearest objects and connect them together. The nearest components, vertices, and connect them together and link them. So with that, those connections have been made. Now when I hit play here, let's see what we get. A dress. Suddenly, that's staying up, and we get this nice simulation. Now, this cloth is feeling a little thick right here, so let's take the preset here and switch it to maybe silk and see what happens here. That's a little better. That's kind of folding in on itself a little bit nicer. But we've got a dress simulated and attached to the character. Now, is this going to be as nice as Marvelous Designers cloth simulation, not without a lot more work. But for a simple dress that we just need to have it in our scene, we just want the character to move around in a dress, there we go. We've got a dress that works. Now, is this going to follow my animation? Well, let's take my body collider here. And at this point, I don't really need to see it. So I'm just going to turn off its visibility and turn on my rig's visibility once again. So now we're looking at the base rig. I'm also going to turn her shirt back on, just because. Let's see. Hey, Fernando, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So we've got this so far. Well, is this going to follow our character once we animate them? Well, let's just do that. I'm just going to take the character and I'm going to hold for maybe 40 frames, set a key, and then let's have the character just kneel down. Now you'll notice the dress doesn't follow along because we're not simulating anything at the moment. So have the character kneel down, and we'll just do it very basically here. So as they go through, they bend down. Okay, let's simulate this. So the dress will fall. You get this nice deformation in there. Now you'll see it's a little slow. Partly the reason it's so slow is because I'm streaming. But now as the character bends down, there we go. You can already see the knees pushing out there, and the dress crumples down along with them. There we go. Now imagine having to try and rig that up. And trying to figure out how to set up a joint system for that. And does it look perfect? Does it look great? No. But it's enough to start with. And at this point, a lot of it just comes down to changing some settings. So we'll select our cloth object once again, go into the attribute editor, and this is where we need to start looking into our collision and dynamic properties. So let's look at collision properties first, because this is going to be one of the things that a lot of people kind of skip out on, but it's one of the most important ones. And this basically determines how the object, the cloth, will collide with itself and any other object. So if I look at this, what's determining the amount of collision that's happening and where it collides is the solver display here and our thickness and self-collide width. So to visually see this, let's take our solver display and look at our collision thickness. This is the collision that is going to happen between the cloth object and, in this case, the legs. Let's see, when my animation is finished and I go to replace eye with a new dress and replace my reference, will the dress spend the first 40 to 50 frames falling? Yes. So when you're doing this, you'll want to add, like, just instead of starting on frame 1, start your scene on frame -50 with the character just standing there, absolutely still. And then play blast. The dress will settle, and then just cut your scene in an editing program and cut off the first 50 frames, or technically -50 frames. And then your dress will be simulated right from the start. That way it's not having to fall at the beginning of your actual animation. So you're just giving that time for it to settle first before your shot begins. And Fernando, yes, this is recorded. So all the streams are recorded and they stay up on the Twitch channel for 30 days afterwards. So if you want to see it from the start, definitely feel free. It should be up at the top there under videos, I believe. Let's look at our collision. So again, collision thickness is the dress colliding with other objects. And you can see that's pretty thick. Look at that collision thickness versus the actual thickness of the material. And if we look at the side view here, and make sure I can actually look at side view, you can see this is the ground plane where her shoes are. The dress isn't even coming close to contacting the ground. And the reason being, our collision thickness is too thick. It's not coming close enough to the distance. So let's just take our thickness and lower that. You don't want to go too low or else you're going to get some intersections. But this is going to make your simulation a little bit more fine-tuned. Oh, let's see. I'm sure if this is a complicated answer, but how do you deal with walk cycles where you need the dress to be in the exact same position at the end so you can loop it without popping? Oh. That's tricky. For a walk cycle, at that point, I'm trying to think of a simple way of doing it. Basically, at that point, what you would need to start doing is you'd need to bake out the simulation and then key the actual vertices so that they link back up. But that becomes a really complicated process. What I would, well, let me ask you this: is your walk in place? So, like this character is walking, and it is a character stationary, walking as if they're on a treadmill, or is the character walking forward and just cycling a lot of times? And while you're answering that, and you prep pros can go in and archive videos and even parts of videos. Can I actually archive videos? I had checked before, and it said I could only, like, I'd have to re-upload them or download them, upload them. But if there's an archive feature, I'm definitely going to be using that. So far, I've been just like, I have a bunch of recordings and I had to encode them and re-upload them. If there's just a button that I can archive, man, I'm doing that right after this. Let's see. Yeah, animation layers is another way you can do it, where you simulate the dress, bake it out, and then loop it back into itself. Let's see. If it's easier to do in place, actually it's harder. So what I would recommend is, if your walk is just moving forward, just simulate the dress for the whole walk. And what that's going to do, and this depends on the scenario, so it might not work for exactly what you're aiming for. But if it's just an animation test, for example, and you've got a cycle, and the character is walking and it's just looping the animation, don't let the dress loop. Just play it through the whole way. So that way the dress isn't cycled. And what that's going to do is it's going to take your walk cycle, which is just the same animation over and over, and make it feel more dynamic because the dress is acting on its own. So it'll take a cycle and make it feel like it's not actually a cycle and it's more dynamic than it really is. So it's giving you kind of free animation in a way. Now, if you need it to cycle, if you need it to loop back perfectly for some reason, that I'm going to have to look into a little bit to see what the easiest way. I was thinking in the context of game animation. Oh, for game animation, you wouldn't simulate the dress. It would be rigged, or the game engine would simulate the dress. So if you're using something like Unreal Engine, they actually have simulation in the program, in the game engine, that will simulate the clothing for you. So you would do kind of this setup here, but in the game engine. And then that would simulate the clothing for you without you having to cycle it properly. Or like in terms of actually worrying about all the cloth sim and all of that. So in that sense, you don't have to worry about it. It'll be procedurally generated from the game engine. And that, I haven't really dealt with too many game engines, but that might be something worth diving into at some point during these streams. But yeah, you would just worry about your main cycle, bring it into the game engine, and then add the simulation in there. I hope that answers your question. But let's kind of go here again. And if anyone has questions, definitely feel free to ask. Always feel free to ask questions. That's what these streams are here for. Okay, so we've changed our collision thickness. Again, this is the cloth itself colliding with separate objects, the legs, the ground, etc. But then we have the self-collide thickness. So let's choose our solver and go to self-collision. And this is going to be the size of the collision between the cloth and itself. Now, typically, you kind of want to aim to have these spheres just kind of touching each other barely, something like that. Now, it really depends on your simulation, but usually something like that. You don't want them to intersect with each other, or else it'll be too thick. You also don't want them to be too small, or else the cloth is going to start cutting into itself a little bit too much here. So I'm just going to lower that a little bit. And now let's look at our simulation once again. And let's see. So the character is standing up, and now as they're kneeling down, you can see it's much closer to the ground. And let's switch to our other viewport here. And if we look at the dress itself, it's starting to collapse a little bit more finely. We're getting finer wrinkles in here than we had before. Now we're also getting a few intersections. You can see those black lines right there. That's the dress intersecting with itself. In order to solve those, that's when we start going into the quality settings. But that's going to be something that I want to address in a full demo when we actually have a lot of animation, because that goes into a whole troubleshooting thing on its own. But there we go. I'm actually going to raise the self collision just up a little bit more. There we go. Turn that off. But we have a dress here. Let's see. Baking the sim back down to the rig was the answer I was looking for. Yeah, then it would be easier to bend the solver simulation out at the end of the cycle and into the frames baked at the beginning. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you basically just kind of bake it back into itself so that it reforms again. And you create that nice cycle. So we've got the dress here, and it is simulated and it's working with our animation. Oh, and what's your opinion about Marvelous Designer software? Is a good solution for production in comparison with Maya and Cloth? It's funny you're mentioning that, because I was actually playing around with it just earlier. So this is Marvelous Designer, and this is the piece of clothing I was just playing around with yesterday. And you can see I've just created a simple cloth object here. Let's just go to the 3D view, and I can simulate that right there. So in terms of simulation and in terms of creating realistic simulations, something like this that's dedicated to just this task is of course going to be way better. So what you can do here is you can export your animation from Maya, bring it into Marvelous Designer, create your clothing in there, and then create your simulation right from here. And you're going to get way nicer results. The problem is Marvelous Designer is, what's the price now? Let's see, I'm just looking at its site here. For an individual license, it's either monthly $50, annually $300, or you can get a perpetual license for about $500. For students, that's a little outside the price range. Definitely, if you have the money and you're interested in cloth simulation, go for it. Marvelous Designer is amazing. I've just started playing around with it this last week, and I'm having so much fun with it. But it is on the pricey side. So definitely worth looking into, though. You can even get a 30-day free trial. So, buffering. I think it should be good now. For some reason, my internet just dipped down a little bit there. Oh, and I just noticed the music stopped. I think. Yep, it did. Let's find another soundtrack. There we go. So there are different solutions. There are different packages that you can use. Maya isn't going to give you... You can look at the cloth here. That does not look as nice. One thing that will help is if I just take my eccentricity down here, make it a little thinner, just to kind of make it look like less like plastic. That helps already. But it's going to be much stiffer. It's not going to be as nice as a package designed for strict simulation. But if we just want a quick simulation that gives us semi-accurate results that can be used for animation, then this works really, really well. Now, one thing with this dress that's not working well is you can see how I made a cone shape out of it here. This is what's causing a few issues. Let me actually, I think I've got it still here. This was a simulation I was just doing as a test before the stream. My attack. So yeah, so this was the same basic idea, but this dress you can see is much thinner. And actually, let's compare what the difference does. And I'm going to explain why it's so different after I do this here. So let's do the same thing. We're going to select these edges, this one and this one. Select the edges on this one and this one. Oh, actually, before I do that even, I need to make sure I make a cloth object. So let's go to FX. This is going to be a cloth object, and cloth is going to be a passive collider. Quickly create the constraints here. So we've got both of those, and constraint component to component, like so. Looks like it connected correctly. Change my nucleus. So scale attributes 0.01. End cloth, let's make it silk just like the other one. Replace. And let's compare. So when I simulate this, and oops, increase my range, so we actually have time for the simulation here. That looks better. That looks more like cloth, even when it's just hanging there, than this does. When I animate this one, and let's just kind of stop it before it she bends down here. This is big and billowy, and it doesn't look like cloth. It just looks like a big... It's like it's made out of rubber or some hard or like plastic of some kind. It doesn't feel like cloth. Why? They're the same things. Silk attribute, constrained the same way, created the same way. Why does one feel like cloth, one feel like plastic? And this is something that a lot of people run into when they first get started. And it doesn't make sense if all the attributes are the same. And basically the reason is my geometry is not uniform. If we look at this, look at the base model. At the very top here, let's isolate this. We have these faces that are very close together. It's actually square shaped right here. We have these square shapes. As we go down, look at that. This is pretty much 3 times as wide as they were at the top. We've scaled that out. Now let's look back at the other one. Undo the zoom. The size at the top is pretty much the same size as the bottom. There's a little difference, but it's the same size. Well, why is that important? The way nCloth works is it calculates the distance between vertices from one point to the other, and it creates the cloth simulation and the feel of the cloth based on that. So when everything is uniform, the cloth has a uniform feeling to it. It feels like one solid piece of cloth, and we can adjust it and get a uniform feel for the whole piece, which works well. When you have something like this, where we have this huge disparity between the top and the bottom, or wherever, even right here, what's going to end up happening is Maya is not going to be able to calculate things properly. It's going to look at it and go, oh, well, this here is a different density than the ones at the bottom. Even in real life, if you had that much mass at the bottom, it would roll in on itself. Yeah, exactly. So we have to be very careful how we work with our geometry in here. We want to make sure that it's uniform as much as possible. And that's kind of the tricky thing when you're dealing with cloth, is making sure that you are not scaling things out the way I did in here, which, like, as you can see, is for the example here, it makes a big difference. If we're not careful, we get problems. We get cloth that doesn't feel like cloth. Now I can start adjusting some of these angles here, but really it comes to a point where I just don't have enough detail. There is not enough detail here between these two edges here to create that feeling of cloth. It's just going to be too thick. So at this point I could maybe play around with my bend resistance, maybe turn that down a little bit, but you can see even in the low res, like, just it's big giant faces here. It doesn't have the detail to deform, whereas here we have plenty, and we just didn't stretch it out as big, and we get much better results. And even if we animate the character, let's take this and let's see, body cloth in, yeah, turn that off, bring the rig back here, and do the same animation. So for the first 50 or 40 frames, the character is going to settle and then bend down. So we're going to be basically doing the same animation here. Same thing, like that. Well, let's look at the simulation here and how it works. We need that nice settle. Comes down. Now as the character bends, look at that. We get a much nicer deformation. Now here it's going to look really bad because it's in low res, but when I increase that, look at that. We get this nice fold right here at the start of the dress, right near the legs. We get the feeling that of the contour of the legs down here. This nice folding back here. It feels so much more realistic compared to the other one, which is big and bulky and feels like a big plastic tarp draped over the character. And I'm just going to turn on the plane here just so we can kind of compare it a little bit more evenly. But it's one of those things that a lot of people don't pay attention to when they're making cloth. They'll make cloth that has just like maybe a shirt, but there's lots of empty space on the sleeve compared to the shoulders or in different areas. And what they end up getting is cloth that doesn't work well. Cloth that one part might look okay, but then the sleeve is just a mess of material that just looks like it's plastic or rubber, or it's just not moving right. It can be a nightmare to work with. So you just need to make sure that your object is very well laid out with the detail. Make sure it's all square if you can. It doesn't have to be perfectly square, but the more closer to square, the better. So now we have that. A much nicer result here. And this is what I love about cloth simulation. It's just these like little bulge right here, the little fold right there. It's stuff that would be a pain to try and work with if you had a rigged dress. But it's so nice here. If she was sitting, would you make the chair collider? You could. The big thing is when she's sitting, you'd want to make sure that there's a little bit of a gap so that she doesn't collide right into it. And I can actually do that right here. So let's create a polygon cube. It'll just be a cube. We're not going to worry about an exact chair here. But let's say, instead of just bending down, she was going to sit down. So we're going to go from there, maybe give a little bit more time. This is just, oops, delete that frame. I don't need 500 frames here. There we go. So let's see, sit down. Maybe it's going to be, let's see, 24 a second? No, maybe a little longer. I want a slow sit for now so we can see what's going on. Let's go 90 frames. And have her sit. Now I'm actually going to bring it this way. Let's move this down a little bit. And I'm going to show what happens if I go too far here first. And let's just break this down a little bit. This is just the animator in me. I don't want it to be perfectly even. Something like that. And let's move this just a little closer here. Or actually, no, this is not going to be realistic. Well, actually, yeah. Let's actually add some hip rotation as well so we can see the dress reacting to the hips of the character moving too. So let's kind of bring that out here. And bring this a little closer here so it kind of arcs inwards like that. There we go. So we've got this sitting motion here. Perfect. So to finish this, let's see. The constraints are not liking this process. Yeah, if you're scrubbing through your animation, you'll see that the dress is not going to work. This is because we're scrubbing. As we're scrubbing, the dress won't simulate. It can't simulate. So it'll just kind of pop around and do some weird stuff. I believe if you... Let's see. You can disable the end cloth so that it doesn't do that, but let's see. Forget exactly where that is. For now, we've got this. Let's make this into a collider. So create passive collider, and let's hit play. See what happens. So she's going to start sitting down here. Now it's going to be a little slow because it's calculating. And let's go there. You can see the dress is deforming, very nice. It hits the chair or box, very nice. But then, right here, it implodes. And we get this. Kind of an embarrassing situation here. And what's happened is the box can't collide with the chair and the body. The cloth is being pushed between both of them because the body is intersecting with the chair. So at this point, we have to try and figure out how to fix this. And there's a few different ways. One way is to make sure that as the character is sitting, we just leave a little bit of a gap. So without the cloth, it's going to look a little weird. But then when we simulate, let's see, I'm also going to go in here, take my collisions, and turn down the thickness of the colliders. That's also going to help. But now, as the character sits, we're leaving a gap, and hopefully I left enough. If not, we'll see that same thing, that implosion. And this should hopefully work. Let's see. So she sits down. It's colliding with that. So far, so good. And okay, not too bad. Now, could I push her a little closer? Maybe. But the problem is, now you're always having to fine tune. Is she actually colliding with it? Is she not? It's a pain to deal with that. So there's a few different ways you can do this. And now we're seeing the knee kind of cut through. So toning down that thickness has made it so that the knees kind of come through, which is not good. Okay, well, how else can we do this? Well, we make colliders for our objects that are not actually the right size. They're not exactly the same size as our object. I can also take the thickness of the cube here and turn that down. So if we look at the collision thickness of the cube, you can see here, by default it was 0.5. That's pretty thick. I can tone that down a little bit so that it doesn't have quite as much thickness. But also, I can take my cube, let's duplicate it, and just scale up the outer cube here. So what I'm going to have is the outer cube, this is going to be the actual chair, and then the inner cube is going to be the collider for the chair. And what that's going to give me is the ability to then adjust things so I get the exact sit I need. So let's play through here for just a second, and hopefully this is making sense. We're basically going to be tricking the audience. The cloth is going to look like it collides with this object, is colliding with the one underneath it. And you can see we'll have a little cut right there. But then I can take this one, this outer object, and move it up or down and get that nice feeling of connection right in there. So something like that. I doubt I'd be able to replicate what you're doing. It just takes practice. When I first started dealing with cloth, it was nightmarish. I was so bad at it. And it is just a tricky thing to deal with in general, whenever you're dealing with simulations. But now, I still have to do some fine tuning. You can see it's cutting way too much right here. But now I've got a character that feels like she's sitting a little bit better. Compared to the original box, if I move this away, you'll see she's actually floating. So I'm just using two objects. One to create the base collider, the other to actually be the object. And what this also helps with is, let's say we have a chair that's this super ornate chair. There's a ton of fine detail and cushions and all of this stuff. To simulate that as a passive object would be very slow calculations. It's too complex. But I can create a simple object, like a cube in this case, place it within the more complex object, and use that as a collider. So to the audience, it still looks like she's colliding with the complex object, but she's really just colliding with the simple object within it. It speeds up your simulations. So replicating isn't really my goal anyway. Oh, I'm mostly learning animation because I hope to work with animators someday. Awesome! That's an awesome goal. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that I wanted to show. The last thing, and this is something I'm going to be talking more about later on when we get to actual animation. So I'm just going to cover it quickly here, but like we've shown before, when I scrub through, the animation isn't, or the cloth isn't moving with my character. We get this weird disconnect, or the cloth is trying to follow but isn't. This is not fun to work with. This is sounding like hitboxes of video games. It's exactly what it is. When you try to shoot around objects but you hit their hitboxes, yeah, exactly. Or sometimes in like fighting games when you hit someone and it's like it wasn't even close but it hit you anyway, or you obviously hit them but it went right through. That's what we're doing. We're playing with hitboxes with this. But in terms of this dress here, as we're animating, we're noticing that we can't scrub through our dress. Additionally, it is a pain to have to hit play and slowly simulate this every single time I hit play. What if I'm done simulating the dress and like it's good? I know I like it. I've got all my settings right. Yay, good to go. I don't want to have to simulate it live every single time. What do I do? Well, in this case, what we need to do is create an N-cache. An N-cache basically saves out your simulation to a file and then uses that file to play the simulation. So to do this, I'm just going to select my cloth here and let's create a new N-cache. And let's see here. I haven't done this in a while on 2018, so let's create an N-object cache. And I'm just going to save this to, let's see, do I want to save it there? Let's just save it here, Bifrost. Okay. And I'm going to call this iAddress. So, let's see. Every time I hear hitboxes, I think about Team Fortress 2. I miss Team Fortress 2. My brother and I used to play heavy medic combo. I was the medic, he was the heavy, and we would have so much fun, especially on 2 Fort. That was such a fun level. PUBG. I haven't played PUBG. I always wanted to, but never got around to it. So let's name this iAddress, and the format doesn't really matter. Let's just save it as one file. And the time range, I'm just going to use the time slider down here. And I want to save every frame. So let's hit create. So what this is going to do is it's going to play through and play the simulation. And basically what it's doing now is it's trying to save the simulation. When there aren't sniper, oh yeah, snipers just everywhere, and everyone wants to be the sniper. Everyone wants to get the achievements. What was it? Sniper? Scouts were... There were a lot of scouts all the time. No one wanted to play medic. No one wanted to play engineer. That was fun. It is a timeless game. It definitely just has this unique quality to it. Oh yeah, spies. When you'd get those good spies that would just stab you in the back over and over and over again, it was so frustrating, but you couldn't be really mad at them because they were... It takes skill to be a good spy. So let's see, my cache has been done. Now, when I scrub through, look at that. I can scrub through my animation. Done. Now when I'm play blasting, or if I hit play again, it's playing way faster. I've sped up Maya because it's no longer calculating things live. It's just playing a recording of my simulation. Now, if at any point I need to recache it, maybe there's something I need to do or I want to disable the cache, well, I can, let's see, I can create a new cache and save over top of it. That'll replace it. I could disable my cache right here. So just select the dress and disable the cache. I can replace it. This will just redo the simulation. And basically, there we go. So now with this, I can actually work quickly. And this is so nice. For a long time, I didn't realize you had this ability in Maya when I first started learning N-cloth and N-objects. So I'd make these simulations that had like a lot of stuff, and my computer was like, I would hit play and it would bog down. And sure, it looked good. I'd make the play blast and oh shoot, something didn't work quite right. Make another play blast and then it would take forever again, and it's just nightmarish. By making the caches, it just speeds everything up. You're going to be able to play blast much faster, and it basically makes animating a whole lot easier. Let's see. I always had admiration for spies that were great with the ambassador. Yes. The ambassador, I could never use the ambassador, which crits on headshots and kills players easily. My aim is not godlike. I played with the soldier a lot. It was either the medic or the soldier. So the splash damage was very nice. So it's the memory on a calculator? Yeah, it's similar to that. It's just saving it in memory, technically to a cache file that it just pulls from there instead of having to simulate live, which just makes our lives a whole lot easier. See, I remember doing something like this in college. Maya always crashed. Maya used to crash a lot. I'm using Maya 2018 now, and I haven't had too many crashes with it in terms of simulation. I used to use Maya 2011, and before that, when I was much younger, I can't remember which version I used. Every time I did simulations on those, it would crash all the time. It was so bad. My computer wasn't very powerful back then either, so that didn't help. Let's see. So Maya 2009. Oh yeah, that one. I'm trying to think what projects I was working on at that time. At that time, I was doing mostly modeling and rigging. No animation. I'd never done animation, but man, I would keep breaking things, especially when I would try to do particle simulations and stuff. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, what's the best PC setup if you want to be able to run simulations like this? A lot of RAM is nice. So if you actually look here, a lot of RAM and a good CPU/GPU on your video card. So just a good gaming card, if you like games, that'll work. You could also get like a Quattro card. Those are much more expensive, but they're made for this kind of stuff. I like gaming, so I just get a really good gaming card. But let's disable this the cache here and just watch my computer usage here as I simulate this. So I think I disabled it. So yeah, you can see my CPU is at 100%. So your CPU, your amount of processors, that's what's going to help the most. I have a quad core, I believe, on my system. So that really helps speed things up. If you've only got a single core, that's going to be very slow. GPUs also help quite a bit too. Now, if I enable the cache here, let's see the same requirements. So, did I close it off completely? So, let that settle back, hit play. Look at that. It finally reached 100 here, but it's not actually hitting 100. It's just 97, 96. Still high, but definitely not nearly as bad as it was before. So that's going to be the big thing that helps for simulations. Good RAM amount is good too, but that's just in general for Maya. Let's see, Maya 2012 I think crashed when you press Control-Alt Spacebar. I wouldn't doubt it. I think I tried to skip out on 2012. I went from 2011 to 2013, and I only used 2012 for like testing purposes, and I didn't use it very much. 2011 was pretty stable. 2013 I used for a long time. 2015 was okay. It wasn't great, but it was not bad. 16 was decent. 17, for me personally, did not work very well. And I'm really liking 2018. So far, 2018 is probably my favorite version. So that's nice. I tried using it as part of a project in my school days, never had that issue. Yeah, his name is awesome. It definitely is. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing here in terms of simulation. at least for creating a basic cloth sim. Like I said, in the future streams, what I'm planning to do is I want to animate a very simple animation of a character maybe walking, maybe do a spin, just something where we can really see the cloth, and then make a dress and maybe like a simple shirt of some kind to show how to deal with actual simulation in a animation environment. Where the character might accidentally cut through their clothes, or what happens when your collisions aren't working correctly. There's a bunch of things that happen when you actually have a ton of animation. What if you wanted to do a pleated dress? If you wanted to do a pleated dress, then what you would have to do is you'd model the pleats and then constrain them using a end constraint, and create some component constraints so that it holds the pleats together. Not so much that it solidifies the dress, but you just have to kind of watch or make sure that the pleats you want to stick together hold together. Now, the thing with end constraints is that they are not quite like regular constraints. So if, for example, by default, when you first create those constraints, it'll stick. The pleats will not stretch, they will be like they're stitched together. Well, that's not how a pleated dress works. If you like pull it apart, it stretches out and then it falls back in. But with constraints here, you can actually set them to be a weld constraint for end constraints. Basically, it's welded together. They are not moving. So this will just lock things together. A spring constraint will have give and take. So it'll actually pull apart depending on the objects. So for example, if I lowered the strength, if there's no pressure being put on the skirt, the pleats will hold in place. If suddenly they get stretched, well, they'll let go and the constraints will break in essence. And then when they come back together, they'll come back into place. So that's the way you would kind of work with pleats in that sense. And you have all sorts of strengths here. You can see right there. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And maybe for the demo that I do, instead of just doing a simple dress, maybe I'll try to create a pleated dress or something that has some kind of design or component to it. Now, there is another way you can do it, which is you use a simple dress like this, just simple geometry, and then you wrap the more complex dress over top of it. That is another way to get faster playback, faster results in cloth simulation, and that's something I did want to show, hopefully in the future demos. And do you have any recommendations on places to get feedback on personal projects? Well, if you want feedback from me, I'm always happy to give feedback. There's a Discord group down below, a link to my Discord group, the Pratt Bros Discord group. If you have work that you'd like me to take a look at, always feel free to ask. I can't promise that I can look at it right away, but I'm always happy to help out if I can, if you have any questions or anything. In terms of other open groups, there are some Facebook groups. Let me see if I have anyone here. Let's see. I don't think I have any on this account right here on this system. But there are... Oh no, I should have one here. I know I have a Facebook group that is all for asking about feedback. Just making sure that I have the right account for it. But that can definitely help. Animated Buzz. Let me take a look at that. Nice, the Animation Social Network. Ooh, I don't think I've heard about Animation Buzz before. I'm gonna check this out. Yeah, check that out, definitely. Thank you so much, Sin. Let's see. There you go. No, I don't use Facebook enough. I'm so pathetic when it comes to looking up things here. Where are you? Animator study group. I think this is it. Okay. So I think you have animation students everywhere, right here. And then this one, animator study group. Yeah, this one as well. So you can take a look at those two Facebook groups. That's a great place to get feedback and just share your work. Let's see. Yeah, those would be the main ones I would suggest at the moment, offhand. Let's see. And in terms of if you want people to look at your work and give critiques on work and animation, if you don't know about it, I would recommend SyncSketch. SyncSketch is a great website where you can upload your work and then people can draw over it and frame through it, scrub through the audio. Really, really nice. Let's see. I know another animation streamer who does feedback. Yeah. If you actually, and this is someone I would recommend all of you check out. Let me find his Twitch channel here. His name is Straz, and he's an awesome streamer. He's actually worked on a lot of the Marvel movies, or Ant-Man and a few others, and he does streams every Monday. What was it? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I believe. It's a little late at night, at least for me, but oops. Following. Let me find the link here for you guys. There you go, Straz. That's what I thought it was. So check out his channel. And every Friday he does animation feedback streams where you can jump in and oh, you already whispered it? Awesome. We're on the same wavelength here. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely check him out. He's an awesome guy. Let's see. What else? I think those would be the main ones for now. And like I said, if you have any questions about animation or you'd like me to check out some of your work, feel free to post it in the Twitch group, the Discord link down below. I'm always happy to help out if I can. Or if you have questions like for a demo or something you'd like to learn more about, let me know and I'd be happy to try and create a stream demo for it for you. Let's see. So I think with that, I'm pretty much done on this demo. Now, one thing I did want to mention for Sin here, you'd ask me a question about, or you'd ask a question in general about cycles in animation and the way you would kind of go in and out of a cycle. And I don't have a demo here to do it physically, but I did want to give an answer now so that you don't have to wait for a demo later on. I do want to do a demo for you on that at some point though. Show how to use a cycle and go in and out of it like that. Oh, he's doing another stream in 6 hours? Awesome! I'll have to see if I can jump in. So when you're dealing with cycles, one of the ways you can do it is, let's say you have a cycle and it's just going through and you want to drop it in on animation that you already have. Let's say you've got the beginning of your shot ready and then you want the character to drop into a cycle and then get out of it afterwards. What I would recommend is using animation layers. Animation layers will basically allow you to have the character animated, doing their own thing. Then you apply the cycle onto a second animation layer, have that turn on and overwrite the original layer. They'll go into the cycle. If you need to maybe edit part of the cycle as they're cycling, make another animation layer that you can then use to edit the cycle. and then have it all come back down into the main layer when you get back into your main animation. Right now I'm using another rig because I didn't plan my constraints ahead. The cycle would be on Studio Library, for example. Yeah, exactly. You would save out the cycle, and this is how you work in a studio. You animate the cycle in a empty scene, basically the character in a cycle, that's it. Save it out, and then you can import it into whatever scenes you want without having to bring in another rig and then try to like switch between two rigs or anything like that. Nice. In an animation layer, animation layers are awesome. I love them so much. They can add so much to a scene. But yeah, so you basically just start stacking layers, and then when you're ready to come out of the cycle, you just go back down to your base layer and you're good to go. And that would be the easiest way to do it. Now there are other ways, like you could put a cycle in and then bake it out and then edit the keys for that. That's another way of doing it. So instead of having to do another animation layer on top, you bake your cycle in and then just start tweaking keys where you need it. But then if you need to change the cycle or kind of go back to the original, then you have to re-import it and it becomes a pain. Let's see, when you have the cycle in Studio Library, can you say like loop for X frames? Well, the thing is, a cycle, it just has infinity curves. So the actual animation could be just 24 frames, but with infinity curves, so it'll just keep on going forever. And then if you needed to just go for a certain amount, then you would bake it out for the exact amount of frames you need. That way you're not having to worry about bake a cycle on the boat and to be able to change it when she jumps in. Exactly. So this way you just have this, what's the right word I'm looking for, this freedom to not be locked down to, oh, I saved a cycle in Studio Library, but I only saved it for 48 frames, not 30, or like if I have a 48 frame cycle, but I needed a 56 frame cycle because it just bakes out at this range. No, it'll bake out to an infinity amount of frames, and then you just bake it, or did I say bake twice? You just have an infinite cycle, and then you bake it down to what you need. It just gives a little bit more freedom. And for anyone who isn't sure what we're talking about in terms of Studio Library, this is a free plugin that I would recommend you guys check out, is Studio Library. Just do a Google search for it. And it's basically a library where you can save poses, expressions, animation. You can save all sorts of things. You can use it to mirror poses. You can use it to save selection sets. So if you're always selecting a certain thing on certain rigs, you can save that out. It's just a super useful tool, and especially for cycles. So if you have a character that you're constantly animating and you want them to have a specific walk cycle or a breathing cycle, just click that. There you go. You've got a breathing cycle throughout your whole scene that's ready to be adjusted. It doesn't have to be animated from scratch every single time, which becomes nightmarish when you're having to do that over and over and over and over again, the same breath over and over. So definitely check that out if you haven't checked it out already, and especially if you're interested in animation. So let's see. With that, if anyone else has any other questions, definitely let me know. If not, we might call it here. Usually we'd go about 3 hours. We're 15 minutes short today, but let's see. I think I've covered everything. So just kind of as a quick recap, when you're dealing with cloth, the big thing to do is pay attention to a few small things. First, you need to make sure that your nucleus is set to the right scale. That's the big one. That's the one that's going to get the most issues if you don't set correctly. Next, make sure your presets for the cloth are set to an actual cloth object and not the default cloth that Maya has, because a lot of time it's not actually going to be cloth. It's going to be this weird plasticky something. Make sure that your material or your object that is cloth has a uniform density for its geometry. So don't have it like my red dress where it was bowed out and the faces at the bottom were 3 times as wide as the ones at the top. Don't do that. Keep it like that yellow dress where everything's even. That gives you better results. If you're working with a rig, in order to get faster results, you don't have to do this. This is optional. But in order to get faster results, connect the shape node, the out mesh of your rig into a shape node of a simple cube. That's going to create basically a collider object that you can use for your simulations that won't be nearly as taxing on your system. It's going to go way faster and prevent crashes because Maya isn't having to try and calculate a whole bunch of things, which you never want to put Maya through too much stress when it's calculating because it, as people have mentioned, it crashes. It does. We don't want to lose our work. So those would be the main things I would recommend when you're first starting out with the end cloth, just to double check, make sure that you're paying attention to those little things, and it can make a big difference to your scenes. Just in terms of the ease of use and avoiding the main pitfalls of cloth. So with that, if there's no other questions, thank you so much everyone for hanging out for this stream. I hope it was helpful. Definitely let me know if you have questions. You can message me on the Pratt Bros Discord group down below. Message me on Twitter, which I believe is also linked down below. If you're a part of AM, feel free to message me anytime on the Animation Mentor Discord or on the Animation Mentor website. And until next time, I hope you have an awesome week. Best of luck on any projects you're working on, and I'll see you around. Bye.